Hey y'all, I'm doing my video for week 14. I kind of wanted to start out by talking about our discussion board. I thought that it really applied to the articles that we had read this week. The first question that we were asked was, should the government be able to control or be able to compel certain types of speech? I don't think that they should be able to control or be forced to push those certain types of speech on anyone, because when you tend to push or force something on someone, it just makes them really not want to do it that much more. And for mandating the Pledge of Allegiance, and the same thing with the non-discrimination laws to mandate speech, and even compelling certain types of speech, I don't think that should be so. I think they should be able to just promote it more. I think that's what's really needed here, is just for it to be more promoted, not forced on anyone. Because it's just like now, we have laws that we're basically forced to have, and half the people don't even follow them. So what would make someone think that if the government's compelling certain types of speech, that anyone's going to follow it? And that's just my view on that. I wanted to talk about the first article, the constitutional law, the freedom of expressive association, and organization's right to choose what not to say. I have a quote that I found really interesting that kind of pertained to our discussion for the week. It stated that the freedom of expressive association has been recognized by the court as the right to associate for the purpose of engaging in activities protected by the First Amendment, such as speech. I think this kind of falls in the category of the compelling certain types of speech. It's not a law. It's not, even if it was, like I said, I just don't think that it would be any more followed than the laws we already have. I think that they should be promoted. I mean, promote to use better types of speech, or the better, just not to use like fighting words and hate speech and things like that. That's not necessarily all protected under the First Amendment. In the same article, in the Robert versus the Jaycees, the court addressed that the conflict between the state interest of the gender-based discrimination and guarantee of freedom of expressive association. I don't think that it's right that people use gender-based discrimination against someone. If you like someone, don't base it off their gender. Like, I'm thinking job-wise. We had a question in my ethics class this week that talked about this. You can't discriminate against someone just because of their race or their gender. It's considered discrimination. So now I want to go on to the second article that we had this week, compelled speech, expressive conduct, and wedding cake. Commentary on Masterpiece Cake Shop versus Colorado Civil Rights Commission. I really like this article. There's a quote in this that kind of pertained to our discussion board this week also that I really liked, that I want to kind of elaborate on. It stated that the Supreme Court should affirm in part and reverse in part, remaining to the lower courts to issue a remedy that explicitly does not compel expressive conduct or speech. This kind of backed up what I was saying. I do not think that the government should be able to compel any types of speech. But that's not where I'm going with this. Okay, so that case in that article talked about how the guy wouldn't make the cakes for a couple of the same sex because it was supposedly illegal in Colorado. So he said that he was not going to do it because he wasn't going to make illegal action. And then he comes back to say that, let me find where I was in my article. He comes back to say that it was his religious beliefs is why he wasn't doing it. And so they ended up getting married in Massachusetts. And then they had a wedding cake made with rainbow themed wedding cake in Colorado is what was stated. It said that the Phillips' refusal to bake a wedding cake for the same sex constituted discrimination on the basis of sexuality. This is very much so discrimination. And it happens a lot in today's world, a lot that we don't see. And I think my religious views, I kind of agree with it, but it's really wrong. And I know that it's wrong, but it's not how I was raised. And I think a lot of other people see it that way too. But that's just, we all have religious beliefs, our own beliefs. We are going to see things the way that we were raised to see them. And so, but either way, it was still wrong because it is considered discrimination, and discrimination is not protected in the First Amendment or any of the Constitution at that. So this is my video for the week. Hope y'all enjoyed.